Hi, so yes, we are still working on this. I think it's quite fascinating actually where it began. I mean, it began as basically a modified steam engine actually. Air engines and steam engines have a great deal in common. Now obviously we made it from plastic, so there's no way we're pumping steam through it, but we made it from plastic and ran it on air. And it was pretty much just like you would expect any simple steam engine to look like. Then we progressed it a little bit really, and we kind of built on that and came up with this valve system that I absolutely love, to be honest, because it moves really easily and redirects the air. But now I'm looking at this piston, because the object of this is to run this on extremely low pressure air, relying on low pressures and higher volume. Now I'm trying to puff this and blow this just up and down with my breath, and I can't actually quite do that because I don't have enough breath really, and I think the fault there is in the piston itself. So we've looked at the valve, we've looked at the linkage mechanism, we've looked at how we might be able to generate from it, and now what we're going to do is look at this piston. And I've had an idea. I was thinking that maybe a bellows would work. When you're thinking about a bellows, obviously you're often thinking about things like fires, but bellows get used all over the place, and one great use of a bellows system is in ventilation during operations. They put people to sleep, they stick them on a breathing machine, and that is effectively just a set of bellows going up and down, pushing air into the lungs. And well, I'm going to push air out of my lungs, so how about pushing it into a bellows? So what I'm going to do is make a bellows and replace this piston with a little bellows setup, which I thought was kind of interesting. So let's get on and do that. So here are our bellows set. Now, if you want to know how I make those, check out the Making Bellows from a Venetian Blind. That's where I made these, and all the details for the construction are in there. So we have two sets of bellows, and you'll notice they're closed at one end and open at the other, and that's obviously to let the air in and out. So these two bellows will be fixed to each other. And then what I've got is a couple of end plates, again with openings for them, and the end plates go on there. And those openings take a little air import, which is basically just a jar where I've drilled a hole in it. That jar fits in there, I've got a little bit of pipe and that fits in there, and that's how we're going to make the connection to the air hose. Between these two we've got another board with two holes in them, and that will go directly in the middle like that. And those two holes are for rods, so the rods will go in as guide rods between the end plates, so those bellows will slide up and down, pushing those guide rods in and out as they move. So that's the intent, and that's what I'm going to construct, and I'll construct that now. So there you go, it's in a frame. Now I'm going into too much detail because, to be honest, I think it's really quite obvious. All I've really done is glue on a couple of end panels here and here with the air ports that we used in the previous video. So it's there's pretty much exactly the same. It's, instead of having the piston, it's got this double acting bellows system. The two bellows sets are connected here, this centerpiece, which has no connection between the two bellows, and then we put runner rods on that centerpiece, so as I pull that handle, the bellows alternatively fill and empty. It does chuck out a surprising amount of air actually. Now you'll notice, or maybe you didn't, but there we go. See that? The bellows themselves act like a spring. So when we were talking about the earthquake machine, we were talking about putting a spring on the piston. Effectively, that's what we've done. This bellows space acts like a sort of piston, the piston being here, so it's kind of external piston. The bellows themselves act like a spring, so we have in fact created an oscillator, which is really cool. Now we're going to use this valve, and remember this good information on how to build this valve in the Tesla earthquake machine. I'm going to use that valve right there. So this will have a push rod on it operating the valve, and then we should be able to use this either on ordinary air supply or in a vacuum. But it's really got quite a lot of blow. I'm quite pleased with that. So what I've got to do now is fix the valves, add in the tubes, and we're ready to run it. Okay. To test this while it was there, I just connected it up to the vacuum cleaner and I was working the valve by hand. To be honest, it's absolutely fantastic. So I'm going to turn the vacuum cleaner on, apologise for the noise, and we're going to run this a little bit by hand before we put the push rod in. Isn't that awesome? Okay, let's face it, this is just a little bit wacky and a little bit of fun. I mean, it's not going to power anything magnificent anytime soon, but I thought it was just so Heath Robinson it had to be done, really. And there it is, all together with its valve connected, and we'll turn on the vacuum cleaner and we'll see this thing running. So, how awesome was that, really? I mean, what could you do with such a thing? Well, I suppose you could put some coils on it, I suppose you could generate, I suppose you could use low volume air, there's a whole load of things. But it just struck me as a really fun thing to do. I'm going to do a separate video on how to make those bellows, incidentally, because the bellows themselves are useful for a whole host of projects. I just put them into this silly engine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video and thank you very much for watching.